It's so hard right now to move people. Almost everyone has made up their minds, and those who haven't, if you're truly undecided, you're probably not going to vote. You probably dislike both candidates. You have an issue with Trump's attitude, with what he says, how he communicates, and who he is as a person. You have an issue with Kamala Harris, in how she answers questions and whether she deals with specifics. And you're basically deciding at this point, I don't like either of them, so I don't want to vote.
Ruh-roh, Rastro. And then there's this, not a good look.
I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up. Lock him out. That's what we have to do.
Oh, did I say the quiet part out loud? You got to lock him up. Well, that doesn't come across very fun and genteel and joy. I don't see the joy vibes there, do you? I don't hear the joy vibes, do you? Well, I want to get into another issue in a few. I want to get into minorities not voting for Kamala in record numbers. And a lot of them are staying home in much bigger amounts than before with Biden and former President Hussein Obama. And also, is it possible that Donald Trump actually leads Kamala with Arab Americans, which would be unreal to her? What does their internal polling show that you and I do not know? And it probably is pretty bad. Meanwhile, Wall Street pros are getting into position, the Wall Street Journal reports. Wall Street pros, today the WSJ reported this, Wall Street pros get into position to profit from a Trump win. Well, what do people say? The markets, the Wall Street Journal people know who's going to win. Well, their money is looking at Trump and going, we want that. We're going to make more. Our number, of course, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So I make that a preset. Lines partially open, 3 lines open, chime in right now. We're going to continue a little bit more on who has the doom and gloom and who has the joy vibes. It completely has switched. There's no joy from Kamala. It's all doom and gloom. Do you think her campaign is in trouble? Do you think Biden may have been the best candidate to beat Trump after all, as the Hill reported today? Is this campaign turning into a train wreck dumpster fire, as I believe? Have they Comey'd themselves? Like when James Comey came out and tried to help Hillary and destroyed her campaign at the very end, it looks like the Democrats have destroyed their campaign by taking Biden out and putting Kamala in. Or maybe it wouldn't matter who wins. They both stink because they both did what they did to this country for 4 years, and this country doesn't want it. They want the mean tweets guy. I heard somebody today on Fox who said, yeah, but the mean tweets, the vile stuff, they don't care anymore. They know who he is. 100% of the people are either for Trump or against him. Either will hold their nose and vote for him or will not vote for him. 18% of voters, black voters in Georgia, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, will not, as of right now, are undecided. And you heard Frank Lund say in the last hour I played it on CNN last night, fake news CNN, he said the undecided voters really are not undecided. They know what they're going to do, and they're pretty much not going to vote. And the CNN anchor was like, are you kidding me? And then he said there was somewhere around like 1 to 3% that are still possibly open, but it's a tiny swing, strain of voters. And the numbers keep trending in Trump, which shows they don't like him, but they like his policies. And they don't care about the doom and gloom. The doom and gloom of hers is not attractive. There's no more joy. There is no more joy. Do I need to play that soundbite of her, producer Garrett, too, again, about the doom and gloom? You think so? Okay, I want you to hear this. He what I like about him is he'll say, "No, don't play it again. It bores," or "We've heard it enough." I don't know half the time. I'm going to play it again. He says I should, and I like that because I do think we should. Here she is at the. This is a montage of her speech yesterday at her appearances.
Donald Trump is an unserious man, but the consequences of him being president of the United States are brutally serious. There are things that he says that will be the subject of skits and laughter and jokes. But words have meaning coming from someone who aspires to stand behind the seal of the President of the United States.
That's not fun. She's talking about how bad Trump is. That's a downer. She said it was all about joy and joy vibes. There's no joy vibes anymore. It's all doom and gloom. Two lines open. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Let us now go to Charles in Mejia. Hello, Charles. What do you got? WBAP.
Well, thanks for taking my call. There's two things I want to say. Well, I'm going to drop my first point, but as a successful businessman who sold my company about 2 years ago, and I've got some money in the bank invested, I'm afraid of what her plan would do to unrealized capital gains. And I have a substantial amount of money. I'm not a Donald Trump and I'm not a Elon Musk, but I'm afraid of what her policies would do to what I want to leave my children.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, we talked to my sponsor, my CPA, who helps people with IRS problems, Randy Martin from IRSprob.com. We had him on about that, and he said this is really, really bad. His business is people like you, when you own your small or medium-sized business throughout DFW and the region, that is his bread and butter for people who have IRS issues. And he said this will absolutely destroy them because on paper they might look good, but most of that money is going back into the business. It is not their salary. And he also said that it is true that you and I, me, this middle class guy, maybe a little bit higher than middle class for me, I don't know, but people like you and me could be our homes. If it's worth on paper more than we paid for it, we're going to get that unrealized gain tax, even though we won't get it back when the house goes downward. It's insane to think my home, a tax haven that I live in, not an investment one, could possibly be punished for owning it. And my 401k, same thing. I get taxed on I get taxed on 401k going up. When it goes down, I don't get a tax rebate. This woman is insane. She will destroy us all. I agree with you. And then she was personally responsible for casting three tie votes for the $5.8 trillion, for most of the $5.8 trillion that Joe Biden and her spent in 3.5 years. Trump spent less than half of that in 4 years. They spent more than double it. $5.8 trillion they spent in 3.5 years. That is what former top Obama economists Jason Furman and Larry Summers said publicly. You are going to cause inflation. Do not pass those bills. And she did, and we got the inflation. And they said, see, we told you so. I can't blame you, Charles. And you must be a bad person now, an evil person, because they'll say you're rich and you need to pay your fair share.
Well,
were you rich? Were you rich throughout the time you owned your business and when you got it to where you got it from?
I grew up dirt poor.
Okay, well, so did Kamala. She grew up with like a middle class neighborhood with lawns.
I grew up.
Although she used to say she grew up in a privilege. She grew up privileged is what she used to say. Now she says she's middle class. Go ahead, sir.
Give me a freaking break.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. In all honesty, I'm afraid of what this can do to what I want to leave my kids.
I agree. I appreciate your call, my friend, and I wish you all the best, friend. Thank you, and congratulations on your success. I don't believe you should be punished. We have time for one more, or do we have to go, Producer Garrett, too? We got time for one more? No. Okay. Paul in Prosper, James in Fort Worth. It's going to go James, then Paul. You guys are right out of the box in 2 minutes at 9:15 on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Two lines open, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. And is it possible that the pollsters blew it in 2020 and could be wrong again? And why would give Trump a decisive, solid victory, not a small margin win? Wow, that is next, and why that could very well be. It was in the Wall Street Journal and separately in the New York Times both today about the same theory about why Trump's numbers could be much higher and why they keep being much higher when he's in the running versus the other elections. That is next on the Chris Crock Show at 9:16 on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Absolutely amazing. A new poll done by YouGov. And let's see, it was Al Arabia, Saudi-owned Al Arabia. On news, well, hold on, separately. Okay, this is a YouGov poll, and it just says now that Arab Americans now find Trump more favorable than Kamala. He actually leads in the polling with Arab American voters. 45 points more likely to vote for Trump, while 43% more likely to vote for Harris. That's really bad. That's probably why the Real Clear Politics average of polls shows 1.2 lead for Trump in Michigan. Arizona, you can stick a fork in Kamala in Arizona. I mean, it's over in that state. If you look at the numbers, Trump is up by 1.8. I don't think there's tons of Arabs there, but I'm sure they have mosques like we do here and everything. But anyways, that's bad. I mean, this is bad news. Georgia up by 4, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in their final poll. Pollsters blew it in 2020, Wall Street Journal says. Will they be wrong again in 2024? I believe so. So does the New York Times, because they believe the voters that are not very active except when Trump runs. They go out with Trump, but they don't get polled because they don't like answering the pollsters. Some Democrats and many Republicans and Democrats and independents don't want you to know that they're voting for Trump until they just go behind the voting booth. That's why the numbers are different, they're saying. And that's what both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal separately in their lengthy pieces, both issued today, not together, not related, said the same dang thing, y'all. I'll be giving you the details of those stories coming up next. But first, we're going to James in Fort Worth. No, wait. James in Fort Worth, WBAP. Hello.
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 You got me?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, look, Chris, about her campaign, I don't know whether it's fallen on its face as much as we would like it to. I know she's not taking a whooping that she would be if the news media wasn't pampering and protecting this woman. Mm-hmm. Candace Owens, I don't know if you've watched, you've been listening to any of her.
No.
Okay. Well, she has it's a genealogy report out, and her family, Kamala's family, is even calling in and saying the woman that she's calling her grandma is not her grandma. It was really a help. It was hired help, and that the grandma was actually Irish. She wasn't black.
I do know that she grew up. She said she grew up privileged until now. Now she says she grew up middle class.
Well, that's what they were talking about in the family members and these people that were talking. They said no, they owned grocery stores. They owned. In fact, there was one report that they actually
her father comes. No, that's actually absolutely true. Her father was from Jamaica, and that family line owned slaves in Jamaica.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's what the reports were coming out. But see, that's not going to get reported, and that really infuriates me that they are letting this stuff slide by. And I don't think that Trump and JD did as good a job as they should have of spanking her when they had the opportunity. But whether we want to believe she's taking a beating or not, I don't think she's taken as big a beating, Chris, as she should, and that's because the news media isn't reporting the very substances of the conversation that we just had. I
think they're a lot less relevant than you think. I mean, all they're doing tonight on fake news CNN is saying that the generals were saying, or he supposedly praised Hitler's generals. Like, I mean, this stuff is so tertiary, or even more worse out there. It's like, what are you doing? They're just desperate to say anything to try to destroy him, and it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't work. everybody knows what they're going to do about the guy, vote for him or not already. I appreciate your call, James. Paul in Prosper, hello. Let's go, WBAP, you're on the air.
Hi, Chris. I think the collapse of the Harris campaign has been inevitable. She has no substance. She runs on hatred and demagoguery. She's vapid, vacuous, and empty suit. And the thing that the reason she doesn't address the issues is because she doesn't know them. She has no idea what's going on in the world. She is a demagogue who can only count on hatred, and there's no substance there. The Democrats are afraid of the truth because the truth will destroy them.
What do you think about this polling that, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times separately in lengthy pieces both are saying there's a lot of people that truly do believe the reason why Trump underpolls every time, and the same polling with the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, what they see, the same polling that gets it undervalues Trump by several digits in the elections for him are actually much more accurate in the 2022 in the midterms. And they say it's because the people that vote for Trump there's a good chunk of them that are a decent chunk of them that are only coming out for Trump. They're infrequent voters except for Trump. And there's others that are Democrats and moderates or Republicans that don't want to say they do, but they vote for him because they think he's better for what their needs are. What do you think about those two theories from two separate entities of two separate political spectrums that have a lot of credibility with many people?
I think that's absolutely correct. People are afraid of the shrill reaction of the media and the mainstream media to people who support Trump. A Trump supporter is something that is denigrated culturally, and people don't want that. They just want their decision to be respected. They keep it to themselves, and I think now they're going to show the rest of the world who they believe is the right person to lead this country, and he is, because he has solutions, real solutions that he's used before that the Democrats don't, because they drove us into this horrible situation.
You know, it's really hard Barack Obama was shaming black men and saying they're sexist into trying to vote for her. That is a terrible look. That doesn't
How weak is that?
And then she was very insulting of black men, saying, "I'm going to give you a $20,000 welfare check if you are a entrepreneur, even if you haven't even proven yourself. And I think you smoke a lot of weed, black men. So I'm going to decriminalize weed for you. I'm going to make it take away the federal classifications that make it more strict." That's as racist as you can be. Can you imagine a Republican saying, "I think black men smoke a lot of weed and need welfare handouts"?
Unbearably insulting, and they expect these people to just line up behind them and do what they're told, because that's what's always happened. Well, the world is changing. You can't win on hatred. Trump has a plan. The Democrats have fear, and that doesn't get you ahead.
Paul, you remind me of pollster Mark Penn, the way you talk and communicate. I enjoy your communications style. Thank you for coming on. Please come on again, brother. All right, we've got 3 lines open. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. We're going to break down the black vote and why it may be running, and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal both saying that they understand why, they believe why there's a much lower polling for Trump than actually there is. And both theories are amazingly interesting and I think are true. We're going to get into that coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3 at 33 after the hour. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227.
You guys are the same as me. It's the same stuff. We were born the same way.
I want to say I'm a registered Democrat. I voted for you the first time, voted for you the second time.
Thank you.
And I'm going to vote for you again.
You better.
So taxes continue to go up, and sometimes you feel like you're in a losing battle.
I know this place with the taxes and tax certiorari. All I can do is give you a great economy, and you're going to have to get your rents up.
Trump at the barber shop with Lawrence Jones on Fox and Friends in the morning a day or two ago, and that was a very big hit with a barbershop. They're doing a barbershop tour across different areas, presumably swing states as well. In the meantime, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are saying, what if the polls are wrong? The Times wants its readers to think about this. Quote, why the polls and Democrats do well in midterms while the polls and Democrats do poorly in presidential election. The theory holds they can't reach enough of the least politically engaged voters, overwhelmingly back Trump. The polls can do fine in the midterms when one highly engaged, only the highly engaged cast ballots, but underestimate Trump in the presidential elections. If you're a liberal reader, the New York Times says, of this newsletter, the theory may send a shiver down your spine. All cycle, we've noted this. We've agonized over the challenges in polling. The Times Siena poll shows strange similarities in midterm elections. So they get it right, they're saying, most of the time in the midterms. The theory stitches all this together into a political nightmare for Democrats, where it is a harbinger of yet another polling misfire and another Trump presidency, they reported today. The theory is popular among the most renowned pollsters and data scientists, and there's a lot of evidence to support it. The Wall Street Journal, in a completely separate but also today article behind the paywall, which I subscribe and I have here, pollsters are still debating whether Trump himself, the Journal reports, exerts a unique force on voters that pollsters have not yet navigated. Well, state polls were well off base in 2016. National polls aired in 2020. Polling was considered generally accurate in the midterm elections in 2022 when Trump wasn't on the ballot. Some in the survey field have thought that Trump supporters are less trustful of civic institutions and so less likely to take surveys, while others may be wary of telling pollsters their true choice. There are signs in some recent polls that Trump voters, in fact, are not making their voting intention masking. They're not masking it, at least this year, they're saying. However, that theory is also ringing true in the Journal and the New York Times. Do you think that has some merit? Also want to add some black voters in Georgia. The Politico reports today see Trump as a real option. Talk about Albany, Georgia, Mount Zion Baptist. They were there thrilled when Bill Clinton came. They loved it, but they still, some of them still said, we're voting for a 72-year-old black man. Says it's Trump. Trump's a man of his word, even though he was at that church with Bill Clinton and he loved it. Trump is a man of his word. He says what he's going to do. He does. And everything is so high, groceries high, clothes, everything, gas. And 4 years ago, it wasn't that high. And so people see the difference in Kamala Harris and Trump, and they want some of what they had 4 years ago. And I do too. Isn't that amazing? That is a black man named Joseph Parker, who was thrilled to attend the historically black church with Clinton in it, but still is not voting the way Clinton told him to vote. Lastly, the Politico. Unseen middle-class black voters move to the right. Talks about Barbara Clark, the perfect example of a voter, whether black or white, Hispanic, or any ethnic group that defies stereotypes. And he's a black male. They say this. People such as her, she is overlooked as people who could change not just the presidential election, but also the majority in the Senate. Let me tell you something. I lived in Georgia, in Atlanta, for over 2 years, and I lived in Middle Georgia, which is much more rural, in Warner Robins, Georgia. Macon Warner Robins was the radio market I worked in. And let me tell you something. There is a mass phenomenon. There is a massive amount of rural blacks in Georgia, and they're not beholden to the liberal Democrat machine and hardened, ignorant Kamala voters. And they are the ones you're hearing about. This 72-year-old black man in Albany, a small city in South Georgia by Florida area. Now, on this Politico story, this is Selena Zito, who is the absolute guru and is revered as the reporter that knows everything political in in Pennsylvania, and she is the oracle of Pennsylvania reporters and pollsters, and she absolutely says that she's seeing this in Pennsylvania, but also she's the one who said last week, she's like, she was interviewed on the Great One show, Mark Levin. His show on the weekends is much different and better on Fox News on Saturday and Sunday. They're must listen to for me. I listen to them, not watch them. And I want to tell you something. He had her on, and she literally said, it was either her or it was Brian Kilmeade's show on the weekend. Either or, she said that right now Trump is winning in Pennsylvania, and right now it looks like he's going to win Pennsylvania, which is pretty amazing. Somebody like her would even say that, because she's not in the tank for any party. Anyways, Selena Zito writes, a black female registered Democrat almost her whole adult life, voted for Obama twice. I didn't just vote for him, dear. She said, I was a community organizer for Barack Obama for the group Acorn. And I knew you voted. She admitted she did not know politics that well before getting involved with President Hussein Obama. I knew you voted, but really, studying and doing all that, I didn't know. I just took the slate card and voted Democrat. However, as much as she loved Obama's candidacy, and she got in the game and got involved, once he was elected, she found herself wondering why she was not seeing improvements in her community and in her life the way she was promised. After we got Hussein Obama in the first time and nothing happened, nothing changed, I said, whoa, what's going on? And the local Democrats tell me they won't let him do anything to change. My answer to them is, I said, well, he got to step up and say, I'm the president, but nothing changed our community. You went to the park and you went swimming, you play with the neighbors. You could play all day outside. The pool was blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she talked about growing up in an all-black neighborhood with families that made her do chores before she could play. All the people looked out for us. Anyway, she goes on, though. She is saying that she literally is going to vote for Trump. And that's it. Miss Barbara in Columbus, Ohio, spends her days talking about Trump to black neighborhoods. Anyways, big, interesting details on this. And then also, several minority congressional districts in swing states with black voters where black voters are underperforming in turnout. They are not excited about Harris. My buddy Eric Erickson writes, black voters in the South, male and female, do not think Harris has the lived experience of an African American. Harris is the daughter of immigrants of whom descended from a line of slave owners in Jamaica. She grew up in Canada, comfy life in Berkeley, used to refer to herself as privileged, now says middle class. Black voters do not relate to her and her background, he says. So here's my questions for you. Why do you think minorities seem to be rejecting Kamala so much more than Biden and Obama? And why do you think Arab Americans by 45 to 43 are now rejecting Kamala so much more today? And our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. I think the Arab vote has now gone for Trump, broke 45 to 43 over Kamala because he's a strong man and they respect strength in the Arab world. And number two, they want peace in the Middle East and the end of war, even if it's somebody they don't necessarily like too much at all. They want peace in the Middle East and they want to end the war, and they know Kamala will not do that. And they know that she pretends to be on their side, but is not really on their side. That's the story. And my questions for you are, why do you think minorities seem to be rejecting Kamala so much more than Biden and Obama? And why do you think Arabs are rejecting Kamala so much more than Biden and Obama? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Also on general polling, Linda in Strawn, WBAP.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
You know what? It's an attack on Christians. Trump speaks the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat it. And people have to get over that. He gets down to it and says, you know what? This is what's happening. I do it at work. I don't need to babysit people. The truth is the truth. And I think it's like it's an attack against Christians.
You mean she is, you mean?
Excuse me?
It's the Democrats are attacking Christians?
Well, yeah. We see that.
How do you tell me what you're seeing just tell me what you're seeing that tells you it's an attack on Christians from the Democrats? They're attacking Christianity.
Because our morals, values, and standards. And Trump speaks the truth.
Did you hear the audio? And I'll play it for people coming up next. Where in her rally, one of her rallies in Michigan, somebody yelled, and they very well could have been an authentic Kamala voter, but they just yelled at a moment in her rally, "Jesus is Lord." They didn't say anything about her badly or anything about Trump. And then she said, "I think you're at the wrong rally."
She advocated it and stuff. I heard something about that.
I'm going to play that because it's really true, actually, and it was within hearing of range of her. It wasn't, and that was it. The person didn't keep saying stuff. I don't even think they were removed or anything. So it's like I can't believe she said that, and I think she really did hear it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate your call, Linda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Why do you think minorities seem to be rejecting Kamala so much more than Biden? For example, 18% of blacks in Georgia still are undecided, which means they're not voting. My friend who's the guru of Georgia politics says that means they're not voting. He's ran Democrat and Republican campaigns in Georgia. If they're on the fence with less than 2 weeks to go or 2 weeks to go, that means they're not voting if they're African American by this time, if they haven't made up their mind. That's what he says. And in fact, that jives with what pollster Frank Luntz said on Fake News CNN yesterday. He said the undecided voters, most of them are not going to be voting. They're not gonna be changed, and they just don't like what they see. Only a small sliver will change their mind. All right, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Hey, I wanted to also hit something I promised I would tell you tonight right around now, and that is there's like 2 or 3 different local prosecutors all over this country trying to, they've prosecuted Trump and they're trying to throw him in jail. One of them admitted under oath that they met with the White House when they started their probe before they filed charges. They met with the White House. Joe Biden planned out with them, helped them to figure out what to charge them with in a local case. The federal government brought him into D.C. and told him what to do. That is very bad. That is next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. News Talk 820 WBAP now on FM at 93.3. Nathan Wade, who was bedding down with and still is after that police stop showed him with her in the car. He's still bedding down with Big Fanny. Nathan Wade admitted to multiple White House meetings during the Trump Georgia probe. He literally flew to D.C. and collaborated with the Joe Biden White House and their Justice Department, it appears. But he met with them. He met with the White House. And he was under oath on Capitol Hill, closed-door deposition, House Judiciary Committee. Can't lie, it's illegal. And he was asked about an invoice line dating for travel to Athens conference with White House counsel. The Joe Biden White House counsel and Kamala Harris White House counsel. So if it says the conference with the White House counsel, that would mean there was a conference with the White House counsel, they asked. And if you billed for a conference with White House counsel, would that have occurred? I billed for a conference with White House counsel. This document doesn't say that congressional with the White House counsel happened in Athens. That's not what it says. Whether the reference to White House counsel meant he billed for a conference with such an official, Wade said yes. Also, he did not recall the details. He was asked 30 times, what did you discuss? Who was it with Biden's Justice Department? I don't recall. He doesn't remember who he met with in the White House. He doesn't remember what they met about in the White House on multiple occasions. He's a liar. Joe Biden collaborated and colluded with Big Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade to get Trump. Everything you've been told by Trump is true. It's a Democrat Party attempt to take him down through lawfare, and it freaking failed. That was their insurance policy, and it was an utter, sheer disaster. Black voters ditching the Democrats in droves. The woman I told you about in the last segment, a woman who was a massive voter for Obama and volunteered for him as a community organizer, did not volunteer for Hillary. She still voted for Hillary in 2016. Last time she voted for a Democrat by 2018. She got involved with the Republicans. 2020, she worked for him to get Trump reelected. Miss Barbara, she's affectionately known, spends her days talking to black neighbors about why she thinks he's a better choice for their lives. See, our community, we're concerned about if we can buy a loaf of bread and some gasoline to get to work. And I mean, gas was so high, you just couldn't make it. In these last 4 years, I was like, oh my God, you go to the store with hundreds of dollars, you come out with literally one bag, maybe a bag and a half. Several polls indicating Trump is doing surprisingly well among black and Hispanic voters. This is from Real Clear Politics. Democrat Party depends on voters, GOP consultant says, to disregard results and policies, only to vote on identity. I believe voters are smarter than that. I think they're starting to realize Democrats think they're stupid. Nathan in Saginaw, WBAP.
Well, I was just going to call and point out that the reason the Arabs aren't going to vote for Harris.
Yeah, she's down by 2 points against Trump. He's up 2 points over her in the Arab community. That's insane.
Well, those people, they don't like women to begin with. I can't imagine them voting for one to be a president.
Oh, that's a good point. The
States.
Islamic community, the Islamic countries they come from, women are cattle. They're not leaders.
Exactly.
Wow.
So anyway,
I didn't even think about that point. Gosh, what's wrong with me? You're right. That and they murder gays. They murder gays. The gays say free Palestine, queers for Palestine. They'd be the first to be hanged or thrown off a building. I appreciate your great call tonight. Are you sipping on a beer again, Nathan, or is that only Friday night?
No, you caught me.
All right, my man. I know you're a huge Bud Light fan, right? You love that transgender influencer, right?
I'm a Miller Lite guy.
That's right. There you go, buddy. Appreciate your call, Nathan. Coming up next at 3 minutes after the hour, Republicans are eating in the early voting advantage, and more than 15 million Americans have already early voted. What I found out today about my early voting that I have to tell you about, what a sample ballot looked like to me, which is very hard to figure out and find. And the report coming out of one of the major swing states is damning. It's damning for Democrats. And it's very great news for Republicans. All that is coming up at 3 minutes after the hour on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227.